Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Hive Mind, a series of candid conversation with people and CRA expert presented by Alvéole. Today, we're pleased to welcome Allie Block, Director of Community and Marketing at Industrious. First off, Allie, welcome, and thanks for taking the time.
Thank you for having me.
Allie, you've had a rising career at Jamestown. You rose as a started as a project manager, then rose to a senior VP for Jamestown at Google, then carried all those great learnings to Industrious. You're now sitting as an expert in real estate placemaking and as a marketing strategist. I'm very, very pleased to be talking about that today. Can you give us a little bit of background on like what you do exactly on a day-to-day basis?
Sure. Well, at a high level, I like to think of placemaking as convergence of a lot of different things. I think design is a component, community engagement, marketing, branding, events and programming. It's about how all of these things come together to make a place that people feel attached to and connect with, and a place that has a really distinct sense of identity. The work that I'm currently doing, I'm the director of community marketing at Industrious for our experience services business. So I oversee strategy and direction across our portfolio and drive initiatives just so tenant engagement strategies, events and programming, things that really make people excited to show up for work every day.
Do you specialize only for the office, or you do also other like retail or multifamily?
My work at Industrious is really focused on the workplace and the office and how to make it a really vibrant, amazing place for people to show up every day. A lot of my background is spent in mixed use environments, retail heavy assets, a little bit of office, and public realm.
And speaking of your background, the burning question on my lips is like, what's the project that changed how you thought of people in space together?
It would have to be Chelsea Market. I spent over a decade at Jamestown, and not only was Chelsea Market where I actually officed for that decade, it was actually one of the projects that I worked on, towards the beginning of my career, and it's just such a special, unique sort of case study in just how placemaking and community engagement come together to create a place that really is like truly destinational.
How did you make those people come together and brought those in as a community? Like outside of the space was absolutely beautiful and like kind of drive that on its own, but what were the steps that you took?
A huge part of it comes down to retail strategy, really, really thoughtful, curated retail strategy. I think the collection of businesses, entrepreneurs, a good balance of first time brick and mortar, people that have historically only had a food truck and this is their first brick and mortar location, or James Beard award winning chefs all living under the same roof. That's like a really, really special collection and of businesses and experiences. And the other piece of that is just a really, really strong community engagement strategy. Working really closely in partnership with neighborhood associations, the local bid, really understanding our surroundings and who our neighbors are, and what they want. And I think that really great placemaking hinges on community at the end of the day.
Absolutely. I'm going to move on to our concept, which is super simple. It's 9 questions. Today, they're going to be about experience, engagement, and why tenants actually stay. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right, my first question is the honest one. Everyone says experience matter, but most buildings are still doing yoga classes, one-off pop-ups, food truck. Why is the industry so bad at this?
Well, I wouldn't say the industry is so bad at it. I think most buildings are just operating with an events calendar instead of a holistic experience strategy. Like there's nothing wrong with yoga classes or pop-ups. Those things absolutely play a role, but I would say that experience is more than just programming. It's hospitality, it's operations, it's the tech, it's design, amenities. It's all these things working together to shape how people feel in their building every day. The gap is that a lot of buildings are still thinking about this in terms of isolated activations instead of trying to develop a cohesive operating philosophy.
Absolutely. All right, question two, the money one. A skeptical CFO walks in, they've seen experience be a budget line item, but with zero return. What's your 30-second pitch?
One of the most expensive problems I think a company can have is turnover. Losing good people slows down teams, it hurts culture, it impacts performance long term, well before it actually shows up on a spreadsheet. So I'd say that, workplace experience isn't just about making people happy. It's really about helping companies attract and retain talent and supporting productivity and creating environments that people actually want to spend time in. The buildings that are winning today are the ones that are actually helping their tenants perform better. Not just, obviously making people happy and putting a smile on people's faces is at, the core of it, but it really is about making people feel connected to their workplace and ultimately the competitive advantage of having a place that people want to come and work from.
Well said. Skipping to the mistake one. What's the common thing property teams that will completely fall flat with the tenant? They think they got something and then it just doesn't land.
The number one thing that I see lots of buildings doing as a part of their activation strategies is free food as an event strategy, giving out free food. It doesn't fall flat, but it also doesn't really create meaningful connection. If every interaction is so transactional, of course tenants are going to show up if you're providing them with, a free lunch once a quarter, or you're doing, free coffee, and of course they'll show up. But then they leave without building any sort of meaningful relationship to the building or to one another. I think the best community strategies are ones that are creating familiarity and trust and repetitive behavior and interactions over time. And that requires, intentionality and a level of curation, not just free donuts on National Donut Day or, a free lunch here and there.
Yeah, it brings me back to a conversation we often have with property teams and, their engagement strategy is just an event calendar or giving away chocolate on Valentine's Day. Just very sporadic thing which again are not bad. It's just it doesn't necessarily create a sense of connection and place you want to work in.
That's right. The low lift, those are the low lift things. And I think done sparingly is totally fine. And there's a place for that. But to hinge your entire programming strategy on handouts and giveaways and things like that, no one's going to be building an emotional attachment or any sort of connection to the place.
Switching to the identity one. You've said a building need an identity, not just an amenity. What does this look like in practice?
Well, I would say that the best buildings are ones that feel really distinct, meaning you walk in and immediately you understand who this place is for, what it values, the kind of energy that exists in this building, in this workplace. Identity shows up in everything. I'm not just talking about branding and marketing and graphics and things. Identity shows up in the style of hospitality, the programming, the food and bev, the tenant mix, design details. Buildings with a strong identity feel really curated instead of generic. When done really well, that's when you get people starting to talk, say oh, well, in my building, instead of just at the office. They really start to feel attached. I think places that have a really strong sense of identity.
Mm-hmm. I like that nuance. It's very nice.
People want to be able to, and not many can, and I realize this is these buildings are the few and far between. Brag about where you work is an amazing thing not many people get to do. And the buildings where people really feel supported and connected are those places that have a really distinct sense of place.
Switching now to the retention. What's happening in buildings where experience actually converts into a renewal versus building where it doesn't?
The buildings that are driving renewals are the ones that are actively making tenants' lives easier and their teams more effective, more productive. This usually means amenities that are functioning as a true extension of their office, high performing meetings and conferencing centers, hospitality support, places to gather flexibly, seamless tech. The losing strategy or the lesser strategy is to treat amenities like showroom pieces, like beautiful design spaces that photograph well, but don't actually integrate into the daily work life. And the best buildings are ones that are really providing tenants with a platform to do better work and perform. The tenant then focus on what really matters, their
Yeah.
business, instead of trying to figure out how to run, the best workplace. The building becomes then an extension of your office and can help deliver some of those outcomes.
So the budget one now. Small budget, big ambition. Where does a property team even start? Ooh.
The first thing that I would say is just that experience is an investment. Like
Mm-hmm.
it can't be done without making some
Mm-hmm.
kind of investment and alignment on like this is what is going to move the needle for our
Yeah.
asset. I would say like most buildings, it's less so a budget problem so much as it is a like prioritization problem. The other thing I would say is that you don't always necessarily need massive capital to improve experience.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the some of the highest impact things from an workplace experience standpoint are operational. It's better hospitality training, stronger communication, clean arrival moments, smarter partnerships with local businesses, better use of existing space. These are all things that are operational. It's not necessarily about delivering the fanciest space or like having free food for all. It's a lot of it happens in between and facilitating, seamless experience from meetings to events to how you welcome your guests to your office. Like all of those things are, I would say, where you should start.
Um, Switching to the skeptic tenant one, not every tenant wants a community. Some people just want to work and it's totally okay. How do you design an experience for basically both? The one that really are craving that community, that sense of like,
Mhm.
belonging, and the
Mhm.
ones that's a bit more introvert.
Totally. I guess I would say experience as a whole is not just the events and the social moments and the third spaces. The workday is made up of like hundreds of tiny moments from walking in the door, how you register guests, to booking a meeting room, finding quiet places to focus. A great workplace experience is one that yes, helps extroverts connect and socialize and get really energized, but it is also one that helps focus people do their best work without friction. I would say placemaking, activation, like programming strategies is not about forcing interaction. It's really about creating an environment where people feel supported in whatever kind of workday they want to have. Not though, it's like I don't need to spend, an extra hour after work getting to know my colleagues, or I'm here to get my work done. And I think really great hospitality and workplace experience can also help achieve that.
I also think it's generational. Younger generations really want, or maybe craving a little bit more that sense of connection and belonging, and they're expecting a little bit more than their workplaces. The building should provide an experience that feels more than just a regular building where you go work.
Totally.
So the timeline one, how long do you think it takes before an investment in experience actually shows up into a renewal conversation? Tricky question.
This is a tricky question. I mean, renewals rarely hinge on one moment in time that you can point to. You know, they're the result of thousands of moments and also factors beyond our control. By the time the renewal or like the role comes around, if you're just then starting to think about, is the tenant happy? Like you're too late. Probably. Something that we do is we have an incredibly thorough custom CRM that we use. Our community managers are in our buildings, and such a huge part of their role is to develop really deep relationships, personal relationships with our tenants, and really understand what makes them tick, making sure both on like a daily basis but also like long term, understanding different team needs and understanding how tenants are utilizing the amenities in the building, and studying that information and letting it inform future programming strategies. We also, you know, we work so closely with our asset managers and leasing teams and arm them with this data where they can say like, hey, look, do you know, like 80% of your employees are spending at least 2 days a week in the meetings and conferencing center, or that's something that every day our teams are looking at and really sort of understanding their tenants and how they do their work and what's important to them. Um,
I think you've answered pretty well for a question that you were not sure. My last one, which is the closing stinger. What's the one thing buildings keep getting wrong that nature figured out millions of years ago?
Great question. Successful, healthy, abundant ecosystems are never, they're not self-containing things. There's too many buildings often think only about the square footage inside their property lines and forget that the surrounding neighborhood is part of the tenant experience too. The restaurants downstairs, the local coffee shop, the public park, the small businesses nearby, those things shape how the people feel about coming to work every day. And so I would say, again, it's a little bit out of the box, but I do think your building in the context of your local surroundings and your local neighborhood is so important. It's like back to the Chelsea Market example. That's how you get the big tenants coming to your building, because that neighborhood is amazing and so buzzy and has such a strong sense of place and community. And so I would say like the most successful buildings also look outward and are not just focused on what's inside the four walls. They look to strengthen the ecosystem around them because they understand that the thriving neighborhood creates a more valuable building. And that's like the placemaking and the community, like civic engagement part of me speaking. But I do really believe that the best buildings are dialed into their surroundings and the local community and public spaces. And those are things that people really care about and have a really big impact on the workday when people come to work and when they leave work.
I like your allusion to nature and like thinking of it as a whole and not just like a little self-centered unit. Allie, thank you so, so much for all your insight, for
This
again
is
taking the time to
great.
chat with us and, for making our community a little bit not only smarter, but more buzzing. So thank you.